Man, I got a shout out to the homie, Julie GM8FZ. Showing love, man. Appreciate the time, the effort, the logical reasoning you always put into your videos. Thanks. Man, look. Julie be in the comments going off. And I love it. I love every bit of it. I love the wit. And I love the jokes, man. Because it's like when you go through this case, you gotta laugh because there's a lot of nonsense. But anyways, you see Julie around in the comments, say what's up, give her a hug, high five. And Julie, I hope you like this next video coming up. So gonna keep it real low key. I wanted to go over this because it had something to do with the pineapple, and it had some pretty absurd answers by John. So I'm not going to take too much time. Here we go. So this is a conversation, an interview between Lou Smit, John's good friend, and John Ramsey. And they're talking and they get into this conversation, and it's just a bunch of dodging, I guess is what I could say. So here we go. In regards to your daughter, John Ramsey, we'll start off with John Ramsey's statement. So just that it was a question mark that there was or could have been pineapple in her system. So he's unsure if there is pineapple in JonBenét's system. Okay. Lou Smit, and this is your boy. This is the guy that's on your team. He thinks that you're innocent. This is the guy who thinks you're innocent. Let's keep that in mind. And where did you hear that? Thank you, because we got to figure out, you guys are hearing stuff. And I like this because Mike Cain had asked Patsy when we were talking about Michael Helgoff, where did you hear this information from? Because you guys are popping up with information and we don't know where you got it from. Just trying to figure out where you got it from. Where'd you hear from? Oh, then they get to talking about stuff that they should not know, probably. Oh, well, John may have said something, or, wherever I heard it. No, Where did you hear it? Because this wherever I heard it stuff, where'd you hear it? Anyways, where'd you hear that? John Ramsey says, we're talking about the pineapple. John Ramsey says, oh, it's been on the tabloids, been on television. I think these fellows asked me about it. It started to come up as a question, at least in the media. John Ramsey, just that it was a question mark, that there was either was or could have been pineapple in her system. Where'd you hear that? It's been in the tabloids. It's been on television. You about to make me mad, because this is your daughter. This is your daughter. And we are asking, where did you hear this very intimate detail about your daughter? And you told me it's been in the tabloids. It's been on television. Some people asked me about it. It's come up in questions in the media. Really? Uh-huh. Lou Smit says, see, that's a question. Since we talking about it, let's go there then. Since you brought it up, let's go there. Okay. John Ramsey says, well, I don't know. I mean, I will guarantee you it was not after she came home. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone. I guarantee you it's not after she came home. She was sound asleep. So it had to be at the Whites or prior to that. Lou Smit says, okay, now when you say it wouldn't be afterwards, I mean, now that's why this is going to be inaudible, the question that's going to always be asked. John Ramsey says, she was sound asleep when I carried her upstairs. I mean, I noted The girl was sound asleep. She was sound asleep. I noted when I got her out of the car and I struggled to get her out of the back seat and I almost dropped her. Why? Why? Why did you almost, she's less than 50 pounds. Why did you almost drop her? Okay, this is what I mean when I say sometimes John Ramsey says some very obscure things and I'm like, what? Are you trying to make your story sound more believable or what? Because I almost dropped her. So I'm getting her out of the back seat and I almost dropped her. How? What would have caused you to drop her? I kind of struggled to get her up in my arms and it didn't faze her. Can you tell us why you struggled? Were you holding other presents? Were you holding presents in your hand? Were you holding cake from the party? Why would you be struggling? Just these obscure things that are just like, what? Okay. Almost dropped her. Kind of struggled to get her up in my arms and it didn't faze her. She didn't wake up. She was just out. And I know if she goes to sleep, that's it for the night. Oh, really? Then that would make it sort of silly then, wouldn't it? For you to be saying that you read her a nighttime story. How would you read a kid a nighttime story who's already asleep? Picture yourself, please. For you parents out there, maybe you correct me if I'm wrong. Please. Please. Have you ever saw your child sleep? Correct me if I'm wrong. Have you ever saw your child knocked out, gone, snooze fest? Nothing that you can do to rock them. Because I've been there. Nothing that you can do to rock this child. They won't wake up. I've been there. Niece and nephew. I don't have kids. And that's what I'm saying. I do not have kids. So please help me out. Have you ever experienced your child sleep and took them from the car to the bed and laid them down and they were knocked out? Didn't open their eyes, didn't do anything. But you know what you did? You left and you went and got a book. And you brought the book back. And you bought the book back and you said, okay, chapter 1, part 1, Little Red Riding Hood. She skipped through the forest. This child is asleep. Have you ever read to your child while they were in a deep sleep, already asleep? Like you just pulled up a chair, came in and was like, you know what, you're already asleep, but you know what you need? You need me to read a book to you right now. Reading a book to a child would signify to me that they need to be read to sleep. If JonBenét was out like a light, if she was already out, that's it. She didn't need a book read to her. So it's not making sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. Anyways, okay. She didn't wake up. She was just out. And if she goes to sleep, she's out for the night. Okay. Lou Smit. So next question is, could someone have gotten her up and fed her pineapple? I mean, that is a logical question because you did tell us that Patsy, you put her down and then Patsy came after you and put the clothes on her, changed her clothes. Okay. She may have woken up off of that. Gotten her up and fed her pineapple. I mean, that is a logical question. You know, this is what Lou is saying. He says, I mean, that's a logical question. And that's the question we have to answer. So the detective that is on your side says, look, we got to figure out a way through this. We got to answer this question. Can you help me? John Ramsey says, I can't imagine that somebody could have gotten her up, fed her pineapple, and she would have screamed bloody murder. again, such an obscure thing to say. Why would she scream bloody murder? Because she was eating pineapples. I need more context for that. Okay. Lou Smit says, why? Why would she scream bloody murder? And John Ramsey launches in to a narrative that we were not even talking about. What if it was a stranger that woke her up to eat pineapples? Let's step back for a second. Let's just step back for a second. If you're talking to if you're talking to somebody, if you're talking to a friend and like you're trying to have a serious conversation and they launch into the deep, just go left. They just go left. Like, have you ever had that friend to where it's like y'all are talking and then all of a sudden, and y'all are on the same page, but they make these like, they drop these like clues that are just like, what? Okay. You know what I mean? And you don't say anything about it until just they get to one sentence and it becomes like full blown that you guys aren't talking about the same scenario. You guys are not talking about the same thing. I feel like, and I could be wrong, I feel like that was this situation right here. She would have screamed bloody murder. So what he's telling us is, if we think about his structured way of speaking here, imagine that somebody could have gotten her up and fed her. Okay. But when he says, in the context, when he says somebody, he's already thinking intruder. He's already thinking a stranger got her up, because what he's trying to lead the police to say, or lead the police to understand, is that he doesn't want to spell it out, but he has to spell it out. Somebody got her up. It wasn't us. Somebody got her up and fed her pineapple. Lou Smit says, okay, I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you, buddy. It was a stranger. Yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely. John Ramsey says it had to be. Yeah. I mean, we don't have to, reiterate that point. We don't have to stick on that point. We both believe it was an intruder. Mike Kane comes in and has to break this up. Mike Kane says, well, could have been, and he goes inaudible. John Ramsey says, Patsy said she didn't give her any. We're not talking about Patsy right now. We'll talk to Patsy when we need to. Okay. Let's just stick with you, because I don't like how you like to bring other people in when I'm talking to you. You always do that. Oh, well, I asked you, like, you never answer questions straight up. I ask you, what do you think the theory is on who killed your daughter? And you start telling me about, oh, well, so-and-so seems to believe this, or so-and-so seems to believe this, and this person had a pretty good theory. No. I'm asking you. Everybody can come up. I can come up with a theory. Anybody on any channel on YouTube, anybody in the blogs, anybody in the forums, anybody can come up with a theory. The cops, the DA, your lawyers, your friends, your family. I'm asking what you have come up with. I don't want to hear, well, someone's theory was, and I thought that was a pretty good theory. No, I'm asking you what happened, because it does not make sense for you to be telling me what somebody else thought. If I come and ask you, what kind of ice cream do you like? I don't want to hear, well, Johnny come lately, he likes vanilla. So, that's a pretty good ice cream. So are you telling me that you like vanilla ice cream, or what am I missing? Just tell me the kind of ice cream that you like. We don't have to do this round robin. If you like vanilla, just tell me you like vanilla. And that's what he keeps doing. So now he jumps off and says, oh, Patsy said she didn't give her anything. I didn't ask about Patsy. You're inserting things. And I don't know if you know you're doing it or not, but you're subliminally, inserting things here. Like it's like he's piecing information and he's like inserting information into like holes that aren't there. Right. It's like if you're trying to talk and you're trying to go along and you're trying to fill in gaps in a sentence or in a thought or something like that, and there are no gaps, right? He brought up Patsy and there was no gap for Patsy to be brought up. And there was no, who could have, Patsy said she didn't, there was no reason to bring Patsy into this. And that's what I'm saying. Like, what are we talking about? He says, I mean, first of all, if we had said, oh yeah, well, we gave her pineapple, that would have ended the discussion. So what? I don't care. Now we're getting into defensive language because he's saying, I mean, well, shoot, if this is your friend, because there is no need for this defensive language to be there. The man said, you said, what if it was a stranger? What if it was I thought we were all in agreement that it was a stranger. What if it was a stranger? Was it a stranger or not? Do you believe that it's a stranger or not? We can't even move forward because you're not even being clear on whether you think it's a stranger or not. Was it a stranger or not? Moving forward, and then Lou Smit bails you out and says, well, it was. Okay, and then you confirm, well, it had to be. And then you go on to say, well, Patsy didn't give her anything. I mean, first of all, had we said that we did it, then, oh, yeah. But we're not saying that you did it, though. We're just asking how the pineapple got there. What is your theory on the pineapple getting there? And you're like, well, if I would have told you that it was us, this would have ended the discussion. Then why didn't you tell me it was you? To this point, what have we solved? Think about that. To this point, what have we solved? What have we talked about? That was central to this, that's meaningful to the central question. What have we talked about that was meaningful? I just asked you who may have given her pineapples, and you said, I can tell you right now, we didn't feed her any. Well, how did it get there? May have been at the White's party. May have been. Were you not watching what your child was doing at the White's party? Somehow, some way, JonBenét always seems to go missing from your line of sight at convenient times. Somehow, some way, JonBenét just snuck into the refrigerator and pulled out some pineapple when you weren't watching. And to boot, it was one. She just wanted one pineapple. Wherever the pineapple was, she didn't want a lot of it. She just wanted one piece. Okay. Lou Smit says, that's correct. And then John says, but we didn't. Lou Smit says, but the fact, though, John, is she has pineapple in her intestines. I think it was her stomach. Okay. She has that in there. No one has fed her pineapple that we know of. Could someone have fed her pineapple that night is all I will say. Could somebody have done it? I mean, if it's in there, that is a positive. There's nothing. Multiple people are speaking at the same time. John Ramsey says, I understand. I mean, my suspicion when I first heard that was, well, there must have been pineapple at the White's house. And I don't remember it, but there are all sorts of little finger foods and the kids were, in and out and grabbing this and that. We understand the White said no, they didn't serve pineapple. That's factual or not. But I guess my question would be, well, did the kids go to the refrigerator, and get a bite of pineapple at the White's? If it wasn't there, and was it earlier in the day? Patsy would most likely know, she liked pineapple. Thank you for confirming that. Because, Burke had a problem confirming that. When we asked Burke about it, he struggled. What is your sister like? Oh, she just likes any fruit. Okay, well, I appreciate you for this is what I'm saying. Your stories are It's like you know JonBenét, but you don't know JonBenét. Okay. I will be the first to say that when Burke was 9, he seemed to be highly intelligent, well spoken to me. But it was just a surprise to know that he was tripped up on such a question as the pineapple. She liked pineapple. And it wasn't, if there was an open pineapple in the refrigerator, it wouldn't have been, I'm not sure she could get that refrigerator door open. You have to ask Patsy. It was not easy. Stop. What is he saying? What is he saying? I wouldn't, if you think about it, I'm trying to, you're not structuring your sentences directly. Like, you're kind of directionless right now. Extremely directionless. This is what would, if I were the cops, this is what would concern me. I'm sorry. This is what would concern me. Because I can't get a straight answer out of you. I can't get a straight, did you go to Popeye's Chicken yesterday? Well, if you think about it, I'm not sure if it was I'm not sure if it was Church's Chicken, or I'm not sure if it was, KFC. I'm not sure if it was, I know it was a chicken place because, and this is how the Ramseys like to answer, because it had a red stripe. It had like a red and white stripe. So KFC then, and it had a guy on the front with like a glasses and a mustache. So I'm not sure if that was so KFC. I think that was it, or something with a K. But it could have been Popeyes. I'm not sure. That's how they answer questions. That is suspicious. Because it's like, you don't recognize KFC now? I'm confused. Can you just answer the question? You guys ate chicken. What kind of chicken did you eat? You can't remember where you ate chicken from? Man. Stumbling all over his words. I'm not sure she could have gotten in the refrigerator door. Then why are you telling me that? See, and this is what I'm saying. Just throwing. I'm just throwing. Just click. Dude, I'm just throwing it out there. And it's up to the detective to try to figure it out. To try to grab, like he's just fishing. I'm just fishing. And it's up to the detective to try to grab something and say, well, let's go this direction, or grab this and go this direction. And the play is, well, once you grab that direction, if I say, boom, if I throw a line out there and I hook you on, well, it was a stranger. Okay. And the detective agrees, and we're going down the line of a stranger. And then I say, well, think about it. Maybe it could have been a guy who was really nasty and really mean. Well, we would have to think a guy who's really nasty and mean. Maybe he could have been wearing all blue, or maybe he could have been wearing green. Maybe he could have been wearing orange, or maybe he could have been wearing black. And then the detective grabs on the black, and then he's like, yeah, well, see, I've known people to dress in all black, and so that would make sense to me. And you think a guy who's all black and all blue, and so, like, it's a bunch of throwing stuff out there, and it's just like, I'm not getting real solid answers. I'm not getting a very cohesive story. It doesn't make sense. Okay. I'm not sure she could get in the refrigerator. You have to ask Patsy. You don't know if your daughter could get in the refrigerator or not. This is your child. Have you ever seen your child open the refrigerator by herself? Have you? Please tell us that. Because you say, like a freezer door, big walk-in freezer door, it wasn't that easy to open. Why would the pineapples be in the freezer? If the whites were serving finger foods, then probably what was up for selection would probably be on the tables, open to everyone to come by and pick out. I mean, I know it's possible, but the last party that I went to, or not party, but the last event or get together that somebody hosted that I went to, we just picked out what was on the table for the finger food. That's all we did. So, like, the kids deciding to go and struggle with, like, this refrigerator is just really wild to me, that and you're not even saying it's a refrigerator. Well, all of a sudden it's a refrigerator here, but then all of a sudden it's a walk-in freezer door. Okay. But they certainly weren't above going into the pantry. The pantry is not going to have. Okay. But they certainly weren't above going into the pantry and grabbing a box of cereal and, having cereal and stuff. Did y'all hear Lou Smit ask about cereal? This is why I'm frustrated. Did y'all hear Lou Smit ask? Did y'all hear Michael Caine ask about cereal? Did y'all hear them ask about a bowl of cereal anywhere? Did y'all? Where? Please help me. I didn't hear anything about a box of cereal. So why are we talking about cereal, John? What is that about? And having cereal and stuff. So I guess to say if it would not have been out of the question that she grabbed something out of the refrigerator in the day sometime. You're trying to move the timeline up because, either you fed it to her or you didn't. Because if you can try to flip me and make me believe that she ate it earlier on in the day, then you can flip me and make me believe that, if I agree to that, then it's like, oh, well, yeah, then, she ate it earlier on in the day. And you know what? I do remember serving pineapples. I do remember her having pineapples earlier on in the day. Yeah, absolutely. I totally forgot. So was it at the White's party or not? Because you didn't go to the White's party until 4:30. That's the evening time. Talking about the day. Okay. But I don't know that she could get the door open. So stop talking about that. But I mean, it's hard for me to think that this intruder could have taken her downstairs and fed her pineapple. I just can't buy that. Nobody told you to. It's like nobody told you to buy that. Like you're literally thinking up stuff in your head that nobody told you. You're literally thinking up stuff in your head that nobody said anything about. We said nothing about an intruder taking her downstairs and feeding her pineapple. Because now you're about to try to get me to believe something absolutely silly. And that's this abductor woke her up. And as you say, she should have been screaming bloody murder, but she wasn't. This abductor is some kind of kid genius. This abductor is some kind of kid magnet. To where JonBenét was sleeping and she just woke up out of her sleep. She's like, you know what? I want to go with you, even though you're some scary man dressed in all black, standing over my bed. I don't need to scream bloody murder. I'm not scared at all because something about you, as I look into your eyes through your mask in all black, there's something about you that is drawing me to you. And you know what? As a child, I think I just need to go downstairs with you. That's what I thought. And then JonBenét went downstairs and said, you know what, Mr. Intruder, you know what you can do for me? If you're going to remove me from this house, you know what you can do? You can feed me. You can at least buy a girl a drink first. Give me a snack. This is the, you give a girl her favorite snack first. I love pineapples. This is what you're about to try to set me up to believe. This is what you're trying to prop up in front of me. You're trying to build that step so I can step right on it and go on. You know what, John? Now that you said, John, I can really see this intruder. He was probably a nice guy. We need to get an FBI profile on this guy. That have any nice people. Do you know any nice intruders who would have, like, in all you're looking, because they said there were a lot of burglaries, right? A lot of child abuse, a lot of people who abuse children around the city. In all of those cases, were there any reports that those burglars, robbers, child abusers, in any of those cases, was it reported that the person sat down to break bread with the person that they were abducting? Like, do you know? I mean, in any case ever, when we're in the house and we're removing the individual from the house, has the person said, you know what, let's take a beat. I'm tired from, it's been a long day of planning, shuffling around, trying to chase you down. You know, I'm tired. I need to take a beat. Are you hungry? Let me fix you something. Have you guys heard of that? I've never heard of that happening in the house, in the moment. The adrenaline is rushing. And then I said, you know what? We need to take a beat. Let's eat some pineapple and then we'll get back to this abduction. I've never heard that. Lou Smit comes back and says, see, that's the thing. That's the one thing, you know. And somebody said something and said, on the counter, you mean? Lou Smit says, we don't know. The pineapple is inside her. So we have to figure out how that pineapple got there. There is one way it could get there. She had to eat it at some point. And then John Ramsey comes up with a question that is irrelevant. Irrelevant. Are you sure it was pineapple? John, what does it matter? Whether it's pineapple or not. What does that have to do with anything? Who cares? Because if that were the case, you would have just said, well, I don't know anything about no pineapple, but I do know that we fed her some lobster earlier on. So, I mean, did you see lobster in there? That's what you should have said. If you know that she's eaten something, just tell me what she's eaten. But instead of telling me, nah, man, she didn't eat any pineapple. She ate McDonald's, but she didn't eat pineapple. Instead of just telling me that, now you're trying to divert my attention and saying, well, are you sure it was pineapple? Thank God, Lou Smit said yes. John Ramsey said, no question. And then, you know, Lou Smit says, no question. Thanks for sticking to your gun, Lou. I can't give you that. Your guns, Lou. I can't give you that. No question. No question. So that's always been the big bugaboo. John Ramsey said, and this is the question that was weird to me. John Ramsey said, what is there a timeline based on where it was in the digestive system? When I read that the first time, I sat back and I said, is there a time where it was in the digestive system? That's a funny question for you to ask. Walk me through this, guys. Why would John Ramsey care whether or not it's pineapple? Number one. Number two, why would he care where the pineapple was in the digestive system? What does that tell us about the intruder? What clues can that give us about the intruder? Because we've already conceded then, I thought we've conceded that it was the intruder who fed her the pineapple, no matter how far-fetched that idea was. We're conceding that it's the intruder that fed her the pineapple. What would it being in a certain part of her digestive tract matter? What would that mean to anything? Lou Smit says that's always open to people's opinions, but there is various theories. It could be anywhere from 2 hours to more than that. But again, it's in her intestine. So let's lock down the timeline is essentially what Lou is trying to say. Let's lock down a timeline. You know, if we're thinking about how long it's been in her intestines or in her stomach or whatever, if we're thinking about how long that was the case, you know, could be 2 hours, could be more than that, up to 6 hours, I think they said, for the stomach. Could be more than that. But again, it's in her intestine. We're just trying to lock down how it got there. John Ramsey comes back and says, well, my amateur reasoning would be that she came home she was in bed. She came home. Not we arrived home. She came home. She was asleep. She was asleep before we got home, which was, 9:15. We got home at 9:15. I believe she was unalived that night. Lou Smit says what night? John Ramsey says the 25th, if I have my dates right. 26th, evening of the 26th, rather than early in the morning or the next morning. Lou Smit says, think about the dates. John Ramsey says, well, okay, the 25th, Christmas Day night. So if you said midnight, that means that there's 3 hours that I would say there is no way she could have eaten any, as it's a time mark. John Ramsey is still trying to argue that there's no way this girl could have eaten pineapple when the pineapple is in her stomach. But what he's so subtly trying to do is he's trying to say, well, she didn't eat any pineapple, and he's trying to force the investigator to move it with him. I'm saying for a fact, John is saying for a fact, from 9 o'clock to 12, I believe she was no basis for her being killed prior to midnight. Not an ounce of basis for that. We don't have any basis for believing that she was killed before midnight. We have no basis for that. But somehow, some way, John is like, yeah, she was killed before midnight. Let's just stay there. And I believe she was killed before midnight, as opposed to the 26th, early the morning of the 26th. Did you guys hear anything about anybody talking about the 25th or the 26th or the early morning or the evening of the 20? Where's that response coming from? That's what I'm saying. Where is that response? Because I'm confused. So John goes and says it's a time mark. So that means what he's trying to get us to believe is that it happened prior to that, is what he's trying to tell us. It had to. He's trying to force it to be prior to 9 o'clock because she was asleep in the car. So that means even before 8:30 or something like that, when they left the White House, she's asleep in the car. She was asleep the whole 30 minutes that it took us to get home, and we were dropping off presents and talking to people. So she couldn't have eaten it then. So I have to ask you, well, what's the timeline that pineapple can be in her stomach? Because what I need to figure out, and this is what John's thinking is, I can guarantee you, or I suggest that this is his thinking. What's the amount of time that pineapple can be in her system, so we can try to figure out if we can push it to the whites, right? Because if you can tell me, well, it can take 6 hours. Okay, well, great. I believe that she was killed before midnight. And if she was killed before midnight, then let's backtrack. So at 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So she would have had to eat at the very earliest. She could have eaten it at 6 o'clock, at 6 p.m. That's what he's trying to say. Essentially, that's his point. Essentially, 6 p.m. She had to eat it somewhere between 6 p.m. and 12 midnight is what John is trying to say. And he's trying to say, okay, we have 6 hours, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 6 hours. I can take 3 hours away from you. I believe I can take 3 hours because 9, 10, 11, 12. I can take those 3 hours away and you just have 6, 7, 8, 9. So she had to eat that between 6 and 9 is what John is saying. And so he's trying to level it down even further. John has thought about this. John has been thinking about this timeline. So then that means that if we left at 8:30, then she would have had to eat it between 6 and 8:30. And if she would have had to eat it between 6 and 8:30, then that means that she would have had to eat it at the White's house. And what John is trying to get Lou Smit to grab onto is that, okay, well, then that makes sense. And then if John can get Lou Smit to believe, and Mike Cain to believe his word, then that means even though Fleet and Priscilla said we did not serve pineapple, then John can manipulate and push, or I should say he can convince Lou Smit and investigators to go back to Fleet White and say, well, John seems to think that, you know, she didn't have any pineapple from 8:30 to 12. So then that means that it had to be at your place. So essentially, it's getting the pressure off of John and on to Priscilla and Fleet. It does not matter what happens after that to John. I don't care what happens after that. All I know is just ask them what you need to ask them. Try to see if you can't corner them or pin them down to something. And if you can't, then come back to me and let me know what you find. And then we'll have talking points off of that. I'm just, because essentially what it seems like it's happening is that John is just playing off of what's being said. He's just going with the flow enough to play off of what he's memorized the script. And so he's going with the flow enough to play off of what the detective is saying. So if I can get you to go back to Fleet, question Fleet, get more information out of Fleet, and maybe what we can do is we can make Fleet believe that maybe there's something he's forgetting, and then Fleet will take accountability for the pineapple, thus ridding me of needing to or absolving me from any responsibility of having to say, yes, we fed the pineapple, and me not even having to think about it anymore is essentially what's happening here. If Fleet can say, you know what, I don't know. Well, maybe, yeah, now that I think about it, we did have pineapple in the refrigerator. And so if that's the case, then, you know, it's been known that Fleet and Daphne, you know, they're known to, you know, Fleet the Third and Daphne, they're known to go in and pick pineapples because they love pineapples as well. So, you know, they would have done something like that. And so, yeah, we didn't present it. We didn't present pineapple, but the kids knew that it was in there. That's what he's trying to do. Okay. He goes back to Patsy. So he's now pushed that off to Fleet White. And he says, I think Patsy, see that picture? Asked to see if that bowl looks like something that would have been in the refrigerator and left out. Did JonBenét grab a bite when she left the house? It could have been, it couldn't have been when she left the house. Because see, that's what I'm saying. And now he's saying, oh, I got to ask Patsy. Y'all were both there. You know what I mean? You would have known if there was a bowl sitting out on the table or on the counter. You'd have known that. So now we're getting back into this very confusing thing. Was it Fleet or was it y'all? If you're going to blame Fleet, then let's go with that. But was it y'all? Because he's going between two opinions. And this is why the investigation cannot get solved, because John is not speaking. It's double-minded. It is a double-minded way of speaking. On one hand, you're telling me that, hey, we need to check Fleet White out. But on the other hand, you're saying if it was early, and you're trying to play me because you're saying if it was early enough in the day prior to the party, then she could have grabbed it off, then he will admit. But because it's like, well, did she eat pineapple or not? Well, if I lock you in and say, okay, from what we know, it's stuck in the intestine. That means that she ate it 6 hours ago. Okay, then John can do some quick math in his head and backtrack and go click, click, click. Okay, so then she would have had to eat. So then that would have been the time frame. He was going to try to figure it out right then and there and say, okay, if that's the case, then that means that, she couldn't have eaten that Fleet's White. Then I will take responsibility and say, well, yeah, we may have had, you know what? Now I remember the bowl. The bowl was on the table, and so she had a bite. Yeah, before we left, she had one bite. And then if the detective can help him out and say, well, it stays in the system a long time. Okay, well, yeah, boom, that's going to give me everything I need to know. That's what he's trying to do. Looks like something that would have been in the refrigerator and left out. Did JonBenét grab a bite when she left the house? I don't know. But I know as a father and as sound asleep as she was, she didn't get up. We didn't feed her when we got home. She wouldn't have gotten up. Patsy didn't get up. She would have gotten up to feed her. She would have gotten up to feed her. So that isn't an option in my mind. I mean, it would be an intruder drug her down there and tried to feed her something. She would have screamed bloody murder. If she opened her mouth to eat pineapple, she would have screamed bloody murder. Lou Smit says, let's bring it back to center. Let's bring it back to center here. But it's still a fact that it's in there. There's nothing that we can do to change that particular fact. Yeah, because you're trying to flip it and you're trying to do all this and that and trying to tell us about the price of tea in China. And it's like, well, no, we can't flip that. We have to really think critically about how that got there. All of this running around in circles and telling me about how the sky is blue over here and then over here how the sky is gray, and then it could be raining over here one day, but you know this weatherman told us that it's not gonna rain, so I can't believe him. We can't believe all this stuff is nonsense and irrelevant. It's the fact that this pineapple is in there. We need to first establish how it got in there before we can start developing any other theories. There's nothing that we can do to change that particular fact. John Ramsey says, I understand. Lou Smit comes back and says, so is there any possibility at all that Patsy could have done that, have gotten up and gone down there? So Lou is pushing it back till after they got home. John Ramsey says, no. Lou Smit says, would you have known it if she had? And then John Ramsey has to admit, I wouldn't have known it, but she certainly would have said it. No, she wouldn't have. Why would she need to tell you, yeah, I got up? She didn't have to tell you, yeah, I got up and took JonBenét downstairs and fed her some pineapple. Why would she need to tell you that? That's not something that she has to tell you, because he said the same thing when he was talking to Ashley Flowers, when Burke was like, on Dr. Phil, and Burke was like, yeah, I just remember getting up and I really want to go, crack this toy open. And so I went downstairs and I really wanted to get after this thing. And then when Ashley mentioned that to John was like, that's not true. That's another thing that the tabloids are saying. And then Ashley was like, no, he said it on Dr. Phil. And John was like, well, and so Ashley was like, do you think he could have seen anything? Since he's admitted to going back downstairs, do you think he could have seen anything? And then John's first line of defense was, I don't think he understood the question. He's 20. What was he? 29? That was in 2016. 2016. Yeah, he was 29 years old. He would have understood the question. Very clearly, he would have understood the question. And he said, yeah, I got up and went downstairs. Well, I don't think he understood the question. And so what do you think, that he would have been able to hear something? Well, Burke would have said something. Well, he's a kid as well, so he may have been traumatized. I don't know if he necessarily would have said anything. We don't know that. I mean, there was no reason she would have denied it. I mean, it would be very easy. If we were trying to hide this, it would be very easy to say, oh yeah, I got up and fed her pineapple. That explains that. Then put her back to bed. So this tells me that there's something extremely important about this pineapple. This pineapple hinges. Something hinges just from this conversation. We've gone through 5 pages of discussion circling around this pineapple, and we haven't gotten anywhere. While circling around, triangulating around a legitimate answer for this pineapple. We've gone through 5 pages, and I only printed out 7 for this. We've gone through 5 pages, and this is the conversation that we've had. So this tells me right here, this gives me a hunch, and this would have given the cops that were going through the house the same hunch. If you talk around in circles, let me tell you what this conversation sounds like in a different context. And you guys may or may not be familiar with this, but there was a conversation, and you may have seen the clip. There was a conversation with a guy named Speedy. Angel Reese was having a conversation with a guy named Speedy. And she said, Speedy, are you dating anybody? And he said, or do you have and he was like, what do you mean? And she was like, do you have a woman in your life? And I'm paraphrasing. And he said, yeah, I have women in my life. I have multiple women in my life. And she said, do you care to share? And he was like, yeah, man, I have my mom and I have my sister. And she was like, Speedy, I'm talking about, are you dating a woman? And he was like, yeah, I've dated before. But like, the more she asked him questions, and he was joking, but the more she asked him questions about, and she tried to ask him in different ways. Are you dating anybody right now? Do you spend money on women? Are you taking care of any women? The more he started saying, well, I do have a relationship. I am in a relationship. I'm in a relationship with Jesus Christ. He started going all kinds of ways and stuff like that. That's what the conversation is. This is the conversation we've been having for 5 pages. Nothingness. And it always goes back to this defensive stance of, it would have been easy for us to hide this. I'm not saying that you're hiding it. I'm just trying to ask you, do you know how the pineapple got there? I'm not blaming you for anything. Lou Smit said it was a stranger. He said it was a stranger. So I don't know why John keeps on going back to the fact that they could have hid it, but didn't. Are you trying to use some sort of reverse psychology on me to make me believe that you're actually not hiding something when it's possible that you are hiding something? Because it kind of feels like you're hiding something right now. Because if you keep telling me that you're not hiding something, and I'm not saying that you are, then it almost sounds like that you actually are hiding something. It almost sounds like you are hiding something. Not only that, but again, it makes me feel like something hinged. And it makes me feel like whatever happened after this pineapple, after she ate this pineapple, whatever happened hinged on the fact that she ate this pineapple. That's what that makes me feel like. And I'm not even talking about any theory. I'm just saying, it would be my best guess that as I'm reading this, whatever happened had something to do initially with this pineapple. And so from there, it could be the case that this pineapple was taken and eaten. It was only one. And then from there, a problem having to do or something circling around the pineapple arose that they were there to hear, that they were there to witness. And so it's almost like you're telling me without telling me that you were there to witness something, some contention around that single pineapple. I'm going to leave it right there. Anyways, I got up and it'd be very easy to say, oh yeah, I got up and fed her pineapple. That explains that. Then I put her back to bed. We didn't. So and Lou Smit says, this is why, people think about those things, especially detectives. Thank you. So it's not just people in the media. It's not just tabloids. It's not just, the public. It's the detectives. The detectives are thinking about that. Lou is saying, John, you can blame the media. You can say whatever you want about the media, but the detectives are thinking about that. The detectives are asking questions. And it's almost like a signal like, John, we're talking about this, John, but you need to think about this more critically because there are people asking questions. John Ramsey says, well, I guess one of the things that I felt all along is, this thing with, we found the practice note and the practice ransom note on the pad. This is where I need your help again. Please help me. And let's count. Who said anything about a ransom note and a practice pad? Please help me. Please help me. I may have missed it. Where in this entire discussion did we mention anything about the ransom note? I'm asking you. Where was that? This is why you are being suspected, and you remain, and Michael Caine would say, we can't rule the parents out. We can't rule anybody in the family out. This is why he would say that, even though years after, in 2024, years after the DNA has exonerated the Ramseys, this is why he would make that statement, because he remembers these conversations. And I'm pretty sure Mike was sitting there like, what? I guess one of the things that I felt all along is, this thing, and let me finish, because I am confused as to, this came out of left field, because he's talked about cereal. He's talked about a stranger. He's talked about, cereal, a stranger. And now we're talking about a ransom. There's something else I can't remember, but now we're talking about a ransom note. If I was setting this up, give me some credit for being smarter than that. What I have handed Linda Arndt, the pad that I wrote the practice note on. If I were trying to disguise something, why wouldn't we say, oh yeah, we fed her pineapple before she went to bed? That explains that. We didn't. So I don't accept that happened. If it did, I would have said it, or Patsy would have said it. Even if we were guilty, that's the big deal. You know what I mean, that it didn't happen. I know it didn't happen after she went to bed. So there has to be another answer to that question. Then she got up in the middle of the night and had a big bowl of pineapple and went back to bed, or we got her up. So we never said anything about you writing the ransom note. We said Patsy wrote it. So why are you putting yourself in a position to say that you wrote the ransom note? We said Patsy wrote it. Why are you inserting yourself? We cleared you. You are clear, sir, from writing the ransom note. We are sure you didn't write it. We said, on the other hand, your wife, the results are inconclusive. We need more samples to see. That's what we did say. So I'm rather confused as to where this conversation came in. I still expect you. I'm expecting your best answer to help me understand where in this conversation we were talking about the ransom note. I can't accept not knowing, because I can't accept continuing to sit here and be hit out of left field with something that we're not talking about, with somebody clearly gaslighting me. Gaslighting me. We weren't talking about the ransom note. We weren't talking about cereal. We weren't talking about a walk-in freezer. So how do we get here to talking about stepping back and looking at the crime as a whole? Because that, the more questions Lou is asking, John is continually coming back and saying, I am not guilty. So when Lou is asking, essentially, the sender receiver communication, what's happening is that Lou is saying, how did the pineapple get there? That's all I'm asking, John. And John is interpreting that as, you think I'm guilty. And so every single thing that he says is in response to, you think I'm guilty. Do you think I did it? No, you're lying to me. Even though you agree with me, you think I did it. I'm just asking you about the pineapple because that's what they're going to ask. And you should have had an answer already, and that should have been, that answer should have been, we should have deaded this a long time ago. When you came in here and you said, yeah, I've seen that in the news. Somebody asked me about it. I've seen it in tabloids. I've seen it in this, that, whatever. I've seen it in all of this stuff. Man, we fed my daughter pineapple. She loves pineapple. She got up in the middle of the night. She was hungry, and we fed her some food. That's that. That's the interesting. That's it. You had time to think about this because you know somebody bought it to you. So you had time to think about this, and you had time to prepare. And this is what you prepared with. This. Lou Smit says, did she ever go out on her own to go down there and eat pineapple? John Ramsey says, I don't recall that she ever did. I don't know. I don't think so. Not that I remember ever at night. She was getting to the point where she used to be not afraid of the dark or anything or anything at all. And then she was growing up a little bit and getting afraid of the dark and, just kind of normal things that people start to think about. Okay. I can buy that. I can accept that. But she wouldn't have been, we were out solidly asleep. We were all tired. Christmas is a big day. It's exhausting. I know she was. She had to be exhausting. So he's trying to convince us that JonBenét wouldn't have gone. So he can't answer essentially what's happening is he cannot answer for sure how he knows JonBenét didn't get up and wander downstairs. And as he says, it could have happened at Fleet White's house, as he's suggesting, a bowl of pineapple just sitting in the refrigerator. And she could have gone in Fleet White's, refrigerator and picked out a pineapple. Well, if that's the case, she could have done the same thing at your house. And since you were out cold, then she could have said, you know what, I'm hungry. Let's go downstairs. Let me go down. Let me get up and go downstairs. But John cannot refute that that's a possibility. So he says she was getting, so his defense against that is she was scared of the dark. So she probably wouldn't have gone downstairs by herself. Thank you for confirming that all the lights in the house were off. That's what you're telling me. And thank you for confirming that in this case, then the intruder would have been walking around in a dark house, low visibility. Thank you for confirming that. Which makes this more absurd. And so he's like, JonBenét she was out like a light. So I have to convince you that she would have never woken up. And Christmas is a big day. So she was tired from the day. We had this and that and all such, we woke up super early at 6:30 in the morning. We opened presents and, then we made dinner. And then we, whatever we did in the middle of the day. And then we went over to the White's house and they played to their hearts were content and they were tired and they were exhausted. And we came home and we all just knocked out. Because we were all just so exhausted because Christmas is a big day for us. It just zapped all our energy. And that is why you have to believe me, Lou, that JonBenét would not have gotten up after the fact. Lou Smit says, can you see why we have this concern, though? John Ramsey says, I can see why. I know, this question, where did it come from? But I don't think other than the fact that there is this bowl on the table, which I can't, Patsy needs to look at that. Why? You were there just as well as Patsy when you got ready to leave for the party. You would have saw a bowl on the table. This is your daughter. You would have saw a bowl on the table and been like, oh, one of my kids or my wife was eating this bowl. And so when it comes back later, you may not have known who it belonged to, but when it comes back later, you would say, oh yeah, I saw a bowl. Somebody was eating it. I just don't know who it belongs to because it's a bowl in your house. A bowl full of pineapples. Where did it come from? But I don't think other than the fact that there's this bowl on the table, which I can't, Patsy needs to look at it to answer that question. Why are we blaming Patsy? Why are we putting this on Patsy? But it's either very significant if the intruder somehow, that just doesn't make sense. Exactly. You're trying to, you keep, and see, he keeps trying to go there. He keeps trying to push us to say the intruder, he keeps trying to get us to agree and say, well, there is a framework for the intruder sitting in the house and feeding her pineapple. That's what he's trying to get us to believe. In the dark? And Lou Smit will not confirm it. He will not say, oh yeah, there's this one case where this intruder snuck in and fed the girl hot dogs and chips. He will not confirm that. And so John keeps going there and says, but then he gets there and he backs off. This is like the third time he's done this. He gets in and he says, but I won't believe that. That doesn't make sense. Then stop proposing it. You know it's silly. Stop proposing it. It doesn't make sense. Stop proposing it. Stop talking about that. Well, that just doesn't make sense. I mean, JonBenét was smart, strong. She was a smart, strong little girl. And if she had the opportunity to scream and kick and fight, she would have done that. Maybe that's the reason why somebody heard her scream around midnight. But that's also another thing though, right? If Melody, and I don't know if this is the case, I have to go back and look at the day, but if Melody Stanton would have said by this point that, hey, I heard her scream around midnight, John's refutation of that would be, well, no, you couldn't have heard her scream at midnight because JonBenét was there before midnight. That would be his thing. That's him refuting that. Is very subtly, that would be him refuting that. If I could shift this up again, it's a way to shift the timeline. So he said, JonBenét, she's smart, she's strong. And essentially what he's saying is we taught her very well. Whoever this was a monster enough to be able to subdue her and stop her from doing anything. Right. So she would kick and fight. She would have done that. No question in my mind. So I don't buy that. An intruder set her down and fed her pineapple. Great. Absolutely great, because nobody said anything about that. And Lou Smit said that explains it. Thank you. Lou Smit says that explains how she ate the pineapple. Essentially, that's code for, John, you said all that to say what? You said all that to explain what? You said all that to mean what? Because it don't make sense. I'm sorry, John. You got to make it make sense, because you keep on talking to me and it doesn't make sense. It does not. You keep going around in these circles, and every time I tell you something, every time I ask you a question, you start to go into this spiral around, and it's just like, yeah, but I'm not asking you that though. I'm asking you to stay on point. Lou Smit says that explains that. We've got to figure that out. John Ramsey says, yeah. Yeah, what? Yeah, what? Bro, we're trying to solve your daughter's murder here. Like, yeah, what? Because he would do this because he's out of things to say. He's pontificated all he can pontificate. And he has no more to go. This is John saying, Lou, look here. I have talked in circles and said absolutely nothing as much as I could talk in circles and say absolutely nothing. You can keep asking me the same question, Lou, but I'm going to continue to talk in circles and not say nothing. So you make a decision. You make a decision. You want to ask me more of the same question and get the same response? Sure. I could come up with something else. You ask me again. Go ahead. Ask me about these pineapples one more time. Because I've got a whole discussion about why walls are white in my head, ready to go right now. If you ask me another thing about these pineapples. Go ahead. I just painted my walls white last week, and I've been dying to tell somebody the coat and the color of paint that I bought from Home Depot and why I chose that color of paint. Go ahead, Lou. Ask me about these pineapples one more time. Lou Smit says, I know, because he doesn't have anything to say. John Ramsey says, well, I think Patsy, here we go again. Basically, get the pressure off of me. Somebody's got to know how to explain this. I'm done talking about this. I'm done explaining it. Ask somebody else about it. Get somebody else to do it. Patsy needs to see that picture, see if that makes sense to her. That bowl, it didn't to me. If our kids, or if we had prepared food for our kids, we would have given a teaspoon, because there's a whole drawer full of them. Irrelevant. I didn't just say that you would have given him a teaspoon. Don't tell me that you would have, that there's a drawer full of them. I didn't ask you that. I'm not saying that you're barbaric. It would have been a heaping bowl of pineapple. Well, it was. Just if that bowl were in the refrigerator, covered with saran wrap. John, why are you giving me all of the nitty gritty details? Like, this is what this is. This is what this is. This is what he does. Sometimes I laugh. Sometimes I laugh at my dad because sometimes I laugh at my dad because my dad does this thing to where he explains something and he continues to explain it, even though you said I got it. Like, for example, I might call my dad and be like, yo, dad, I'm on, the south side of Houston. Do you remember where this building is? My dad has been all over Houston for years, so he knows every part of Houston. My dad will go, oh yeah, is there a McDonald's to your left? Yes. Okay, great. You're on Antoine or something like that. Or you're on, Kirkendall or something like that. If you look to your right, there's a Valero. Okay, cool. I see that. Go straight. And then you're going to see the place that you're looking for 3 gas stations down. Okay, cool. Appreciate you, Dad. Thank you. Yeah, because, and he will butt in. Yeah, because there's this one store that we used to sell credit card machines to. The guy in there had a family of 4. His family of 4 was one boy and one girl, him and his wife, and they used to always wear blue shirts. They went to school with you guys. I got it, Dad. Thanks a lot. In fact, the son works over at Shell Oil Corporation right now. He's got his degree in accounting. Got it, Dad. I'm pulling up to the place right now. In fact, the daughter now works also for the competitor ExxonMobil. I go back with my siblings and we say, I don't know why I needed that information. I didn't ask for it. Dad, I love you, but I didn't ask for that information. I'm just trying to get to the place that I'm trying to go. That's what John is doing. If we would have done that, the bowl would have been big. We would have gone big. It would have been a heaping bowl in the refrigerator, covered in saran wrap or something. It's possible that Patsy would have remembered doing that or remember that. But I have to look at the picture. I can't see any other explanation. It looks strange to me. Quite frankly, Lou Smit says, Mike, got anything? Mike Cain is sitting there. You realize that Mike Cain has just been sitting here, confused as all get out. Mike has asked like one question, and that's it. This entire time, it's been Lou and John, and Mike has just been sitting there like, what? I don't know where to get in. Mike says, no, I don't have anything. Lou Smit comes back and says, I might touch on this again, just so you know we ain't through. And I know that this is kind of unsettling question for you because it puts questions in your mind, which is very difficult. And we have those questions in our mind too. How does that happen? We'll touch on this again. Okay. John Ramsey nods his head. Lou Smit says, maybe something will come to you and we will find that out. John Ramsey says, yeah, well, I thought about it a lot. Basically, don't ask me again. I already thought about this. I'm not going to give you any answer different. I mean, what I have principally thought about is, was there pineapple at the Whites? They said there wasn't. Why you keep on trying to put, if that's your boy, If that's your best friend and your best friend said, I didn't serve it, then your best friend said, I didn't serve it. Why do you keep going back and saying Fleet got to be lying? Is essentially what you're saying. Fleet has to be lying. I know Fleet said that he didn't do it, but Fleet has to be lying. If that's your boy, if you trust him enough that in the aftermath of you losing a child to an abduction early in the morning, you send your child with Fleet White after losing a child. You don't even know where your youngest child is. And you sent the only child that you are in possession of with someone else. You must really trust him. And you must then believe that you would then have to believe where Fleet would then transfer the care of your son, the only one that you have in your possession right now, from your current marriage, who is vulnerable. He's going crying to Fleet White's house for your kid now to be in possession of Fleet White's family members. You don't even know these folks. Probably met them one time. You don't even know these people. And you've allowed your son to be transferred after your daughter is still missing. You've allowed your son to be transferred into the hands of strangers, more strangers. We talked about strangers at the top of the presentation here. And you would allow your son to be transferred into the hand of more strangers, and you're not concerned about that at all? I'm confused. Extremely confused. That's weird to me that you would do that. And now you're trying to push the narrative. That's your boy, but you trusted Fleet and Fleet's people enough to say, Bert, go with Fleet. But when your boy comes back and says, I didn't serve no pineapple, you bust back and say, well, I mean, you had to because we didn't do it. So it's going to be me or you. And along with other snack foods, I just didn't pay that much attention. The only thing I specifically remember was cracked crab and Priscilla making a plate of it for JonBenét. Oh, well, okay. We know for now that you've told us, you know that JonBenét ate cracked crab. But what we don't see in JonBenét's stomach was cracked crab. Do we? Oh, that's what you wanted us to believe. That makes sense now. Are you sure it's pineapple? That's what he asked us before. Because he was going to say it's cracked crab, and then the cracked crab would have come from Fleet and Priscilla, and he could have automatically pinned that on Fleet and Priscilla. But Lou was like, no, it's pineapple, because the cracked crab was gone. Let's talk about that. The coroner didn't say anything about cracked crab. Maybe he did. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember the coroner saying anything about cracked crab in JonBenét's stomach or in any part of our digestive system. So whatever JonBenét ate over at Fleet White's house, it was gone. The thing that you remember JonBenét eating, she ate early enough for it to not only move through her body, but to be gone. To where the coroner does not mention it. So that means that JonBenét ate the cracked crab early enough to where it would be gone when she was alive. So it's possible that she ate it, and maybe she ate it at, because they left at 4:30 or 8:30. I'm sorry. So he says, if I got there at 4:30, whatever. So if she died before midnight, this is what John is saying. If she died before midnight, whatever she was fed was gone. So then essentially her stomach was empty. And then for some way, then there was a re-up. So then that probably means that JonBenét ate something and she hadn't eaten for a long time, which is why she would have probably gotten up. It makes it more plausible than that JonBenét would have gotten up and been hungry and been like, Mom, I'm hungry. My stomach is growling because I haven't eaten anything in a long time. And they were probably over there talking to Fleet and Priscilla and all the friends. They were probably over there talking to Fleet and Priscilla and all the friends. And, they just forgot to, feed the kids something. And so, Burke was probably awake. So he came home and he was like, I'm hungry. So he could get something to eat. But JonBenét came back downstairs or something like that. And she was like, well, I'm hungry too. We both didn't eat anything. But Burke was awake to stand up for himself and say, well, I'm hungry now. Can you give me something right now? And then JonBenét probably came down and was like, well, I'm hungry too. And then maybe while she was waiting, and I mentioned that there was a glass on the other side of the table that nobody talks about. I haven't seen anybody talk about it, but there was a glass on the other side of the table, opposite from Burke, on the other head position of the table. There was another glass. Maybe they were setting the glass out to give JonBenét a bowl of pineapples or something like that. And maybe Burke was sitting over here since his fingerprints were on the bowl and on the and on the glass of tea. Maybe he was enjoying his stuff. And then they were getting ready for JonBenét. So I got the glass out. Now I need to make you a bowl of something. But before you know it, JonBenét, couldn't wait. And so she went and took one of Burke's pineapples. Just one. Just took one. That's all I want. So she went and took it, and Burke didn't like that. Get away from my stuff. Stop touching my stuff. Don't come down here touching my stuff. Get away. Move. Get away. Get away from my stuff. Get away from me. Don't come over here. Mom says she's about to make you some pineapple. Do not wake up coming down here bothering me. And just mad. I'm just upset just because I don't want you touching my stuff. Man, I don't know where your hands have been. Don't touch my stuff with your dirty little hands. And if you touch my stuff with your dirty little hands, I get infuriated because now I feel like my whole bowl of pineapples are contaminated. You contaminated my bowl of pineapples with your cootie hands. And that makes me mad. Crack Crab would have been gone. And so therefore, JonBenét would have been hungry. And Priscilla making a plate of it for JonBenét. Lou Smit says, I think there was a key to figuring this out too. You never know if sometimes things that puzzle you the most are the keys to figuring out. So who knows what this will bring? Why don't we take a little break? I know that this camera has been running low on film. Voice says, let's do some scheduling. How long do you think you have more? Mike Kane says, I have quite a few pages. Mike Kane says, I will bet I have maybe 5 hours for this guy. 4 hours, maybe 4 hours. Brian Morgan, this is the attorney for John Ramsey. Brian Morgan, are we going to be looking at any more pictures? Lou Smit says, I have a whole bunch of stuff that I can show you later. I don't know if you want to reschedule those or not. Like I say, there's a ton of stuff that we can go through. And that's that. So I just wanted to walk through that because when I read through that the first time, I was puzzled. I was like, what the heck is this? I don't even know if I want to use the word deflection anymore. Because I feel like there's an attempt to throw a smoke grenade and then escape is what's happening. It's like somebody's trying to become an escape artist is what's happening. Is what I feel like. But anyways, I won't belabor that point. Like, share, subscribe. And for those of you sharing my videos, I appreciate it. For those of you liking and commenting, thank you so much. I know I don't get to all the comments and I try to be pretty diligent about getting to the comments and stuff like that. But if I don't get to the comment, that doesn't make your comment any less important. Doesn't make you any less important. Doesn't make what you have to say any less important. It's just that I don't see everything. That's really it. I just don't see everything. As always, be kind to one another. Be respectful to one another. I'm not saying that you're not. I'm just saying, please do be respectful to each other. And so that's the video once again. Like, share, subscribe. And until next video, take it easy.